Okay, welcome. Everyone, thank you for coming. Grateful for poetry. We've got our fine poet Dick Carter, who is going to be reading a lot of poetry, and I'm going to sort of pass around the mic. And I will start by reading a poem by Bill Bolkoff called Thanksgiving, appropriately enough. Thank you for a life of memories so full and bright, a time of transition, neither summer nor winter, a time of rest, a moment to contemplate. Okay, and let's now go to Dick with the next reading. Okay, take it away.
Okay, I'm wondering, how many of you have Spanish besides Dick here?
Spanish?
Yeah,
The
okay.
mic isn't.
Because I'd
The
like,
mic's not picking you up. Can you?
I'd like to start out with a poem by one of my favorite Spanish-speaking poets. He's actually Chilean. You've probably all heard of him, Pablo Neruda.
Yeah.
And I like poems about the ocean, so here it is. I'll read it in Spanish first, and then I'll read it to you in English. Oda a unas flores amarillas. Contra el azul, moviendo sus azules, el mar. Y contra el cielo, unas flores amarillas. Octubre llega. Y aunque sea tan importante el mar desarrollando su mito, su misión, su levadura, estalla sobre la arena el oro de una sola planta amarilla, y se amarran tus ojos a la tierra, huyen del magno mar y sus latidos. Polvo somos, seremos, ni aire, ni fuego, ni agua, sino tierra. Solo tierra seremos, y tal vez unas flores amarillas. Yellow flowers. Against the blue, moving its blues, is the sea. And against the sky, there are some yellow flowers. October arrives. And even though it is so important that the sea is developing its myth, its mission, its leavening, there bursts over the sand the gold of a single yellow plant, and it fastens your eyes to the ground. They flee from the great sea and its latitudes. We are dust, we will be, not air, not fire, not water, but earth. We'll only be earth and perhaps some yellow flowers.
And what was the name of that again?
Ode to some yellow flowers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and then while we're on a foreign language kick here, I'll read one in Russian. How many of you have heard a poem in Russian? You got one? Okay. I'll first in Russian and then in English. It's called Parus, which means a sail. Белеет парус одинокой в тумане моря голубом. Что ищет он в стране далекой, что кинул он в краю родном. Играют волны, ветер свищет, и мачта гнется и скрипит. Увы, он счастья не ищет, и не от счастья бежит. Под ним струятся те лазури, над ним луч солнца золотой, а он надежды просит бури, как будто в бурях есть покой. That was by old Russian 18th century poet called Lermontov, Mikhail Lermontov, and he spent a lot of time down on the Black Sea. And anyhow, he looks out on the sea and sees this white sail and writes a poem about it. There turns white a single sail in the fog of the light blue sea. What is he looking for in this distant land? What did he leave behind in his own native land? The waves play, the wind whistles, and the mast groans and squeaks. Oh, he's not looking for happiness, but he's not fleeing happiness either. Underneath him streams the light blue color of the sea. Over him there's the rays of the golden sun. And he, mutineer, he asked for a sail, he asked for a storm, as if in a storm he might find peace. So that's enough of the foreign language there. I've got one here that is, to me, the theme is gratitude. It's an ode to my father, thanking him for his life, really. I call it The Songs.
It's your poem.
Yeah, my father. Dad was several colors in his old age: gray hair, blue eyes, tan face. He walked slow but kept straight, contemplating each move like a circling hawk, ready to descend on its prey. A robin in the strawberries, a weed in the corn, or a stone out of place. But sometimes his eyes went blank, and the old songs welled up from his soul. Rally around the flag, boys, Dixie, Daisy, and a bicycle built for two. His songs transcended time and space, and he was back with his comrades. But the returning was melancholy. Time travel makes reality dismal. 40 years later, I too sang the old songs and dreamed, and finally knew my father. You know, once Pasternak wrote about poetry, about art in general. He said art is the transmission of emotion from the creator to the observer, or in the case of poetry, the listener. And I hope that got through. Okay. How many of you have heard of the French ballad, The Song of Roland?
Song of Roland. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
It's a medieval song.
Yeah. See, it's a story of a battle, really, and it took place, if I'm not wrong, it took place around the year 789 when Charlemagne was invading what is now Spain. And Roland was his nephew. And I wrote this in what the Italians call terza rima. The famous Italian poet Dante wrote his Inferno in terza rima, and it's every third line rhymes instead of every other line or every fourth line or whatever. And also the lines are interlocking. After I got this done, there were some things I wanted to change, but the way that the lines are interlocking,
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. It would have had to change the whole poem. Okay. I call it Another Song of Roland. Oh, I should say, the original Song of Roland was written about 400 years after the battle, and it was written to inspire the French soldiers to deeds of bravery. And they wanted to point out what a hero Roland was, and they too could be heroes. And I call it Another Song of Roland. The French have long loved the glory of martyrdom at Roncevaux. Let's look again at the story. Picture 1,200 years ago in a Pyrenees mountain lair. When Frenchmen fought a lowly foe, the Christian Boscos living there agreed the French could pass in peace if their Pamplona they would spare. But French bloodletting would not cease. They had pillaged every town. Pamplona too gave no release. As Charlemagne with his golden crown and army crossed the Pyrenees, he offered his guard great renown to take the rear and give him ease. Roland, the king's nephew in arms, agreed but gave no guarantees. We pillaged even Bosco farms, and now we fear an ambuscade. But men of France fear no alarms. Other nobles standing in the shade, Egelhard and Anselm, bowed to the king. With arrogance a vow they made that they would guard the rear. At home for them the bells would ring, but to the king all was not clear. He thought the guard the strength might lack to fight the Boscos without fear. Here, Roland, take this great horn back and make a Pyrenees redoubt. Blow it strong if under attack. Roland, in jest, just like a mischievous lout, took it and with an impish grin blew on the horn to try it out. On horses to the king's chagrin, they led their troops as if in play, blowing the horn, feeling no sin. The heat was strong that August day, so armor on their carts was borne. No one a warning then did say. Without shields they would be forlorn. Full of wine, the men's jokes were vile, and the nobles still played the horn. Their path was through a narrow defile, in oaks and cliffs the way was tight. They could not march, as was their style. The French had won their every fight. With shields they formed a solid square, against even horsemen, heavy or light. Suddenly, arrows started falling there, where their armor was out of reach, behind them on a rocky stair. They took up swords that they could reach. They could only shout with cursing speech. Roland panicked, tried to get past. Form a phalanx, he cried in vain. Grab your shields, he shouted at last. The Boscos saw confusion's reign and charged down in a tumbling horde, using their spears against the train. With 2 spears each, they could afford to lose a shaft if one was broke. Blood flowed down on heather and oak, and the Franks, their own, could not defend. Against the charge they could not cope. Anselm shouted out near the end, blow the horn, call for help, brave knight. And Roland, wounded, heard his friend. When his horse fell, the time was right. With bloody hands he seized the horn and blew on it with all his might. Charlemagne heard, but thought with scorn, Roland is still playing the ass, like a donkey from his true love torn. Roland fell in that narrow pass, and Egelhard fought towards his friend. Fight on, brave Franks, help comes at last. But only crows came in the end, and the king knew not what was lost. No more troops did he deign to send. Defeat for France was the cost. Egelhard and Anselm fought on, and soon their heads in the air were tossed. Others, though bleeding, battled on. They struggled there with all their might, fighting till every man was gone. One lone Frank, with the speed of fright, came running up to Charlemagne's tent and told of Roland's final fight. The king ordered that men be sent to help the living left behind. But Frenchmen there were bloody and rent. Not a Bosco body did they find. Even the oxen and horses were dead. No wounded did they need to bind. The king listened in pain and dread as horsemen tried the loss to explain and wished that he had died instead. The one survivor did maintain The Franks fought well in their defeat, and this became a known refrain. So often the tale did he repeat, the story grew with every telling, and still the song is not complete. You know, in the original Song of Roland, well, of course, Roland finally blew his horn, but it was an act of
It sounded like you captured the meter.
yeah. Okay. I've written a whole series of poems about the ocean, and I brought one here just a sample. I call it Ocean's Moods. Like a schoolboy prowling the halls, hoping to see his true love, I long for the sea. Will I see her? Maybe she'll smile. What's in the waves and on the horizon? Her face serious, sometimes playful, like surf rolling. Feelings surge up, tossed by the tide. Are there secrets? What's in her depths? A fleeting glimpse of forever is somewhere there, but we, being mortal, forever cannot see. And I think I decided to read one more here. And also kind of on the theme of gratitude, I imagine a number of you are planning for church tomorrow and take communion, so that's what this one is about. I'll make that my last poem. I stand here like a tombstone, a monument to my life. In each decade, the sun has shone, and pain has cut me like a knife. Like a baby sparrow in its nest, mouth wide open to its mother, my pudgy fingers took the best of food as holy as no other. Then in years of nature's bloom, with joys and sorrows together, and all the flowers lost their bloom, we survived all kinds of weather. Our mother bird has flown away, leaving her babies sad but whole. Solace comes on the Sabbath day, and bread and wine for our sick soul.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. And now ask for more readings from the audience. Starting from left to right.
Your stuff here. Sorry.
That's okay. Who would like to read?
Dick?
Well, I don't have a Thanksgiving poem per se, but it's about the crows that exult. So, is it easier to talk with the mask off, or is
No, it has to.
you can't do it?
It has to be on, but you need a mic.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was holding the mic. Sorry about that.
All right. All right.
So put it right up to your face.
This poem is called Crows at Green Lake.
Oh, great.
They wait, these black corvids, filling the streets and covering the softball infield, their mass staging arena. Their cacophony rises to crescendo, then falls. Here and there, some rise and circle. A test flight? At Green Lake, it is barely dusk. Above, the cloud canopy is thickening. Banks of swirls indicate winds aloft. Rain is on the way, informs the Weather Bureau. To the crows, weather fronts are primeval history. Are those treetop crows sentinels? Does one wield a starting pistol? Again, the noisome crescendo. It falls away, then rises again. At the edge of the ball field, some of the birds walk heavily. They are impatient to get going, diseased by the onset of darkness. Then, somewhere among that black mass, or did it come from on high? The signal is given. There is a mass whirring of wings, and the whole cohort is suddenly airborne, heading northwest. Walkers and joggers look skyward, alerted by their exultant racket. Tomorrow, before dawn, they will drift back south to the lake and beyond. In a few hours, we'll be dodging them in our cars as they search among the roadway for morsels.
Thank you.
Do you have one? I guess
Okay,
I do have one.
moving on.
I do,
Sorry, Don, she's closer to me.
yeah, I do have one that I could read by Carl Sandburg. I don't do my own poetry writing, but this one says to be read aloud, if so be, on Thanksgiving Day. So we're very close. It's called Fire, excuse me, Fire Dreams. I remember here by the fire, in the flickering reds and saffrons, they came in a ramshackle tub, pilgrims in tall hats, pilgrims of iron jaws, drifting by weeks on beaten seas, and the random chapters say they were glad and sang to God. And so, since the iron-jawed men sat down and said, "Thanks, O God, for life and soup and a little less than a hobo handout today," some gray winds blew gray patterns of sleet on Plymouth Rock, since the iron-jawed men sang, "Thanks, O God." You and I, O child of the West, remember more than ever November and the hunter's moon, November and the yellow-spotted hills. And so, in the name of the iron-jawed men, I will stand up and say yes till the finish is come and gone. God of all broken hearts, empty hands, sleeping soldiers, God of all star-flung beaches of night sky, I and my loved child stand up together today and sing, "Thanks, O God."
Thank you.
Thank you. Good choice.
Welcome.
All right, Don.
Okay. So I'm a fan of David Whyte, who is a pretty well-known poet, philosopher, Irish-American, and he wrote a volume about 6 years ago called Consolations. The subtitle is "The Solace, Nourishment, and Underlying Meaning of Everyday Words." This book is structured like no other book that I've ever seen. He's taken 52 words or phrases and wrote essays about each one of them, about the deeper meanings of words. I'm going to read one of them to you, and it is called Gratitude. Gratitude is not a passive response to something we have been given. Gratitude arises from paying attention, from being awake in the presence of everything that lives within and without us. Gratitude is not necessarily something that is shown after the event. It is the deep a priori state of attention that shows we understand and are equal to the gifted nature of life. Gratitude is the understanding that many millions of things come together and live together and mesh together and breathe together in order for us to take even one more breath of air. That the underlying gift of life and incarnation as a living, participating human being is a privilege. That we are miraculously part of something rather than nothing. Even if that something is temporarily pain or despair, we inhabit a living world with real faces, real voices, laughter, the color blue, the green of the fields, the freshness of a cold wind, or the tawny hue of a winter landscape. To see the full miraculous essentiality of the color blue is to be grateful with no necessity for a word of thanks. To see fully the beauty of a daughter's face is to be fully grateful without having to seek a God to thank him. To sit among friends and strangers, hearing many voices, strange opinions, to intuit inner lives beneath surface lives, to inhabit many worlds at once in this world, to be a someone amongst all other someones, and therefore to make a conversation without saying a word, is to deepen our sense of presence, and therefore our natural sense of thankfulness that everything happens both with us and without us, that we are participants and witnesses all at once. Thankfulness finds its full measure in generosity of presence, both through participation and witness. We sit at the table as part of every other person's world, while making our own world without will or effort. This is what is extraordinary and gifted. This is the essence of gratefulness, seeing to the heart of privilege. Thanksgiving happens when our sense of presence meets all other presences. Being unappreciative might mean we are simply not paying attention.
Nice.
Great.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
I think I should read something from somebody who wanted to be here, but could not. May, would you mind holding the camera on me, I suppose? I need to go find it. Okay. So the first thing I have to read is by Milton Wolfe, and this one is called Farm Thanksgiving. Nothing decorated or outstanding to report, just a childhood glimpse of a farm Thanksgiving. I saw my father throw hay and grain to cows and horses, so I asked, will this be the Thanksgiving feast for our cattle? They will not speak to us in words, but they will speak to us in what they do and what they give us daily, in all they offer us. We say thanks to the Creator who gives us the desire to be thankful. That was just written by Milton Wolfe, November 21. And then Yvonne Shakarian also wanted to be here. And she passed this along. She did not write it, I don't think. We can choose to be sad or choose to be glad by expressing thanks for the blessings we've had. Our joy will increase and will conquer disease. Infections weaken when we have inner peace. Even in solitude, we can pursue gratitude. It's a healthy, life-giving attitude. If we are still breathing, that's the place to start. Let's not take for granted a beating heart. Each day and each hour is a gift treasure. Understanding this truth brings us pleasure. It frees us from resentment and fear and gives us courage to love and share. Though sharing with others what we've been given, we will find joy on this side of heaven. So that's from Yvonne. And that's all I have from those who couldn't be here. Who would like to read next? Or speak next?
I chose this poem because I'm very grateful for the beautiful redwood tree that's outside of our window. It gives us, both of us, a great deal of pleasure every day. And this is Trees by Joyce Kilmer. And it was probably the very first poem I ever memorized. And Joyce Kilmer was a native son of Morristown, New Jersey, which is where I was born. So here it is. I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree.
Thank you. Franz, would you like to read?
Yeah, nobody else.
Here's the microphone. Here, I'll just hold. There we go.
So this is Little Boy Blue by Eugene Field. The little toy dog is covered with dust, but sturdy and staunch he stands, and the little toy soldier is red with rust, and his musket molds in his hands. Time was when the little toy dog was new, and the soldier was passing fair, and that was a time when our little boy Blue kissed them and put them there. Now, don't you go till I come, he said, and don't you make any noise. So, toddling off to his trundle bed, he dreamt of the pretty toys. And as he was dreaming, an angel sang, an angel's song awakened our little boy Blue. Oh, the years are many, the years are long, but the little toy friends are true. Ah, faithful little boy Blue, they stand, each in the same old place, awaiting the touch of a little hand, the smile of a little face, and they wonder as waiting these long years through, in the dust of that little chair, what has become of our little boy Blue since he kissed them and put them there?
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Sorry for the lack of technical ability.
You're on?
We're on.
And this is another Milton Wolf poem, November 2021. Ask me not to spin into some faraway space. I am already struck with so much amazement that my nights speak to me of 1,000 stars, and my days are always planting me with trees that protect me and shelter me with leaves for peace in the seasons of my life. My eyes easily see the mountains of grandeur, are often reflecting on seas large and small. The small hummingbirds of color and the little singing wrens add uniqueness to my life. Why would I want to shoot through the mystic space when all around me are living people with words of help and hope, and each with forms of beauty? I will stay put on this earth until the ever-forgiving, always knowing, original creator offers yet another place for some appropriate travel. Wow. Thank you for coming. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
So grateful for this community. And